Now, web content structures and templates are going to be the primary option for generating content quickly and consistently within the asset framework. But in 7.1, we've introduced a new way of creating content, making it a bit easier for our marketing teams as well. And these two can be used hand in hand to really enhance both your users' experience as well as your content creators. So like I've mentioned before, the new option that we have for 7.1 are called page fragments. All right. Now, page fragments, again, are essentially reusable pieces of a page. So if you can think of any website you've been to, even liferay.com, for example, you're going to see a banner up top. You're going to see some informational content in the middle, perhaps marketing for particular products on a different part of the page, a footer section where you can include some additional navigation, et cetera, et cetera. If you can break down any piece of that page, that is something that can be created and managed by the marketing team through page fragments. So let's go ahead and take a look at what page fragments include. Okay. Now, the creation of page fragments is not necessarily something that your marketing team would be responsible for. Front-end developers can actually come in and use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to create these different fragments. In the fragment editor, you can actually see an example of the fragment that you're creating. And in Liferay, you can also include these LFR editable tags. Okay. And what these editable tags allow us to do is essentially define which part of the fragment can be changed by our marketing teams. All right. So if we use the editable tag, we can edit things like images, text, okay, some rich text, and we also have the ability to embed widgets into our fragments as well. So if there are some widgets that give the sort of functionality that we might need on the page, but we want to primarily do this through fragments, we have that ability. Okay. Now, like I said, this is typically the responsibility of our front-end developers, but once this is created, then we'll be able to actually go in and edit different aspects of the page and reuse these different aspects of the page as well. So let's just take a quick look at some of the code that we might have behind the scenes for a fragment, and then we'll take a look at not only bringing in some fragments, but modifying some of those fragments as well. So if I wanted to have a fragment that included a title, perhaps an image, as well as some text, and I wanted that to be ultimately controlled and editable by my marketing team, this is an example of what that might look like. Okay, so we have our H1, we have the LFR editable tag for our main title, for our image, and for the body text there as well. So you can see we have the editable tag with an ID and a type, and then we have the actual text, image, etc. Okay. Now, to avoid confusion here, what we're not saying is that the marketing team will need to understand this code to make the changes in the code itself, because that's not what we're doing here. All we're doing is we're showing that this is what sort of the background code would look like. Your front-end developers can take this and run with it. And once it's done, our marketing team will be able to literally go to the page that it's displayed on. They can click on the text and type the new text that they want. They can click on the image and they can place a new image in there as the background image as well. And in this case, they could click on the body text and they can change that too. Okay. So the benefit to the marketing team here is not that they need to know a cool new way of doing code. It's that once this is all done and set up, they'll simply be able to come, click, type, make whatever changes they need, and reuse them to fit any sort of specific requirements or use case for any page in that particular site. So as we'll see, page fragments can be created and managed in the build section of our site administration, and they are grouped in collections. Okay, so collections are going to be sort of like your folder concept, like we talked about with the assets, that will allow us to distinguish different kinds of fragments that we might need for perhaps different kinds of pages or different levels of pages, or whatever kind of organization you might need to make things clear for those who are actually generating the sites. Okay, or perhaps even your marketing team. All right, so to break it down, page fragments are reusable parts of a site page that we can have our front-end developers create, and we can manage them as the marketing team. All right, these can be created using the fragment editor in the site administration panel, and they can be organized using our collections. And again, this helps us to distinguish between different kinds of fragment use cases that we might have in the site. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to import some fragments for the Livingston Hotels and Resorts, and we're going to go ahead and set up a special page for those fragments. They can be displayed on a content page, and then we'll go ahead and edit some of the text, clean it up, make sure it looks good, and make sure it's ready to go for the Livingston Hotels and Resorts. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.